you recognize the Domestic Violence Awareness Proclamation that we have before you. A little background. Domestic violence is prevalent in every community and affects all people, regardless of age, socioeconomic status, sexual orientation, gender, race, or nationality. Physical violence is often accompanied by emotionally abusive and controlling behavior as part of a much larger systemic pattern of dominance and control. Domestic violence can result in physical injury, psychological trauma, and even death. The devastating consequences of domestic violence can cross generations and last a lifetime. What we have before you today is staff recommends the declaration of Navajo County proclaiming that October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And I'd like to read the proclamation we have before you.
Please.
Whereas 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 have been physically abused by an intimate partner. Whereas in the U.S., an average of 20 people are physically abused by intimate partners every minute. Whereas domestic violence accounts for 15% of all violent crime. Whereas domestic violence is common among women between the ages of 18 to 24. Whereas victims of domestic violence lose a total of 8 million days of paid work each year. Whereas domestic victimization is correlated with a higher rate of depression and suicidal behavior. Whereas only 34% of people who are injured by intimate partners receive medical care for their injuries. Whereas the problem of domestic violence is not confined to any group of people, but crosses all economic, racial, gender, educational, religious, and societal barriers as is sustained by societal indifference. Whereas the crime of domestic violence violates an individual's privacy, dignity, security, and humanity due to the systemic use of physical, emotional, sexual, psychological, and economic control and/or abuse. Whereas survivors should have help to find the compassion, comfort, and healing they need, and domestic abusers should be punished to the full extent of the law. Whereas survivors of violence should have access to medical and legal services, counseling, transitional housing, and other supportive services so that they can escape the cycle of abuse. Whereas it is important to recognize the compassion and dedication of the individuals who provide service to victims of domestic violence and work to increase public understanding of this significant problem. Whereas local programs, state coalitions, national organizations, and other agencies nationwide are committed to increasing public awareness of domestic violence and its prevalence, and to eliminating it through prevention and education. Whereas our county must dedicate ourselves to protecting vulnerable members of our society. Whereas our county has a moral obligation to work to prevent domestic violence and to address its brutal and destructive effects. Now, therefore, in recognition of the important work done by domestic violence programs and victim services providers, the Navajo County Board of Supervisors do hereby proclaim the month of October 2016 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month and urge all citizens to actively participate in the scheduled activities and programs to work towards the elimination of domestic violence. So the motion I have before you today is to have the Board of Supervisors declare October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
You heard the proclamation. You heard it read by Linda. What's the wish of the board?
Vice Chair, I motion for approval of the proclamation declaring October 2016 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Navajo County.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and second, and Brad, you wish to make a comment on it? I know that we were very much aware that you have made this a priority over the years, trying to make people aware that this is not part of a healthy family. That if you have an issue, you need to get the proper treatment. you need to have the proper care so that we don't have to do it. I do feel for all those people that get caught up in the domestic violence situation. So, Fred?
The statistics that are contained in that proclamation that Linda just read are staggering. And it's not something that we're immune to here in Navajo County. Just in the off-reservation portion of our county, we average nearly 3 deaths a year from domestic violence. And if you take into consideration some of the suicides that are probably having a basis from domestic violence in their lives, that number is probably higher. One is too much. With any societal problem that the criminal justice system gets involved with, we've learned through the years that prosecution and incarceration alone isn't enough. It takes 3 legs. It takes that prosecution and incarceration, but probably more importantly in the long term of changing things, we have to have education, and we have to have resources available for treatment. And it's that treatment aspect that we're lagging once again, because the state, especially through these lean years of budget cuts, have cut the monies to behavioral health. We have good partners in this county, from the White Mountain Safe House, serving the southern part of the county. Hope, is it called, in White River, that assists in Hope Center. We have Alice's Place that works the I-40 corridor, and Jesse and Robert, I won't even try to say the one in Kayenta because it trips off my tongue early on, but we work with all 4 of those. I've walked many miles in Kayenta for the domestic violence shelter up there in my cowboy boots, and I think I need to get bigger ones because they're pinching my toes. But October is one of those opportunities where we have a chance to keep pushing that education component. All of you, I invite you, if you have time, on Monday at 6 p.m. at the old courthouse, we're kicking off our educational campaign with turning Navajo County purple. Purple is the color for domestic violence awareness. And we have lights, and we're going to light up the old courthouse in the color purple, as we did last year, and it'll be lit up every night as a reminder to our communities to think about domestic violence. If you suspect it going on, to contact somebody so we can try to get help to that family. So I thank you for your support and the proclamation. I thank you for the support of what you do to help us with issues such as domestic violence. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any comments? I know that this is what you just described. We felt it over the years. Some have been so close to us. So it gives us that feeling that yes, we need to not only look to the programs, but we need to look to the parents, the grandparents, the close relatives, to look for signs that, hey, this person may be having a little problem, might be thinking about things that we don't know that may involve into domestic violence. So we're reaching out to everyone, like you said, and I certainly do agree. Now that the monies aren't going to be there, so we're going to have to look to each other to help one another.
Mr. Chairman, I just say thank you to Mr. Carline. I know this has been a top priority for you and for your office, and I commend you for your efforts.
Vice Chair, I'd also like to say thank you. I know it's important, there are often topics in our community that we overlook, that our community members ignore because it's not something that is right in their life. And so reminding us that domestic violence is part of our community, and to look out for our neighbors and for our friends and for our family members, and to pay a little bit more attention. Certainly it's significant in our community, and being able to serve on task boards and helping domestic violence, they call it, the silent violence in a sense, and oftentimes the victims are not going to reach out to people. So it takes people like us who are paying attention to our families and our friends and our neighbors. So thank you for bringing some light to it.
Vice Chair, thank you, Brad. And I guess it kind of hits home for me because my cousin's the one that runs the women's shelter in Kanta. And to see what she goes through to bring attention or to help the victims who are coming to her. And all the stuff that she went through to get from the one facility to get another facility. And it just, I guess, I appreciate her. And then herself too, personally, I mean, what she's been subject to, I mean, I think that makes her work more meaningful because of what she's gone through. So I appreciate all that you do. Thank you.
Additional comment is that I know a lot of them, I've talked to them, that come to shelter in Winslow. And many times, all they need is some comfort. Giving them hope, yes, you're in this situation, but there's another tomorrow. Tomorrow might be better, because there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Sometimes that's all, the talk that you give them, sometimes that's all they need to get them feeling some comfort in them. So certainly do appreciate that, the shelter home too. So with that, there's a motion second to approve the proclamation as submitted. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, there being no motion carried. Again, thank you, Linda.